Have you ever looked at a sunflower and thought, wow, this plant is better at efficiency than we are? Or perhaps even more strangely, what if sunflowers and not skyscrapers hold the key to our future city's success? Now, this might sound a bit disconnected because at the end of the day, sunflowers are just plants and cities are complex human-engineered systems. Yet you see, nature has spent millions of years perfecting efficiency for survival, and it's really good at it. That's actually one of the reasons why we have so many different types of patterns in nature, each serving their specific purpose. However, perhaps none of them has captivated the human mind more than the so-called Fibonacci sequence. It's a mathematical pattern thought to be found in multiple nature-based objects, from sunflowers to nautilus shells to hurricanes and even galaxies. And although this right here is a bit of an exaggeration, to be honest, as I'm going to explain you later, Fibonacci sequence, or the golden ratio, has indeed earned its fair respect in nature because it acts as a pattern of resilience. It helps to optimize space, energy, and increase survival. And out of all of the patterns, we just tend to romanticize the Fibonacci sequence the most. However, while doing so, what we tend to forget is how the pattern was incepted in the first place, and the fact that it's a result of nature continuously adapting. Yet, in our cities, we tend to take a completely different approach. We build them with fixed structures, fixed schedules, and outdated models. Instead of embracing nature's biggest lesson, which is adaptation and flexibility, we tend to have very rigid infrastructures. And today I want to show you nature in action with the Fibonacci sequence and how we as human beings tend to misinterpret the whole concept and what can we do about it. Now, I've been fortunate enough to be involved in multiple sustainability projects across the globe, especially when it comes to waste management. I've been leading even consultancy projects with the government sectors, with the private sectors, and of course the public sector, and some of them on technology implementation for circularity on the whole country level. And the unfortunate reality right now is that we tend to generate more waste, actually a lot more waste, than we can responsibly handle. And yet nobody was really talking about it. You see, waste has chronically somehow flown under the radar. It's not that it's not useful, because from a circularity perspective, waste is actually lost resource, lost material, and lost potential. And it represents an epitome of inefficiency. Think of it, something that was once useful has completely lost its value. And yet our waste management becomes worse day by day. And here are some of the statistics. Right now, 56% of the global population live in cities. By the year 2050, this is going to rise to 70%. All of those people need homes, and homes need to be constructed. And construction sector alone contributes to around 40% of the solid waste that we are generating. On top of this, World Bank predicts that urban waste generation is going to increase by 70% by the year 2050. And the most alarming part here is that we have left this challenge to be handled by our outdated waste management methods, which are, for example, landfilling. We use landfilling, which, if not constructed properly, contaminates groundwater and nature, and in addition, takes up space. We have incineration, which is also not perfect because it produces at times a lot of emissions and pollutants. And we use recycling, which despite our biggest efforts still leaves tons of material untreated. Based on this, it would be easy to conclude that something is inherently wrong with the waste management sector itself, because at the end of the day, we have multiple examples from our lives that are truly technologically advanced and serve even as blueprints for technological innovation. However, what I've seen through my work with those multiple projects is that it's more of a failure to adopt and some sort of a continuous embracing of a specific pattern, system, or formula that we used to develop before we started using it, and we continue using it just because we have used it before. So the logic goes that if it worked before, then it should work right now as well. And nobody can be really blamed for it, because me, myself personally, I actually really love patterns. There is something compelling about the fact that you have a structured system in an organized way. Plus, we all crave so much for this one specific formula that would solve all, if not all, then most of our issues. The superpower that we tend to apply, for example, to the Fibonacci sequence in nature, serving as the backbone of efficiency, in our opinion. And now, why this approach is flawed, I'm going to bring you one example. I was recently involved in fronting the development and deployment of an AI-based waste detection tool which leverages satellite images. Now, the idea was that we take satellite images, we deploy our AI model, and we detect illegal waste dumping activities across the city. We then feed this information in a structured and real-time way to the government and the regulator so that they have a specific overview of the waste amounts, waste types, generation patterns, and they can start penalizing also the violators. Now, as with every project, there are of course challenges, and here one of the biggest challenges was how do we optimize the processing of satellite images, because those can get quite large at times. So I was doing some research and I accidentally stumbled upon a research paper that detailed a method called Fibonacci-based spatial sampling. Now, as the name suggests, it's based and is closely linked to the Fibonacci sequence. So naturally, I was curious. I wanted to learn more. And in simple terms, what Fibonacci-based spatial sampling does is that instead of analyzing every pixel of the satellite image equally, we would prioritize the pixels with the most valuable information for us, and thereby we would reduce the computational time and not lose in accuracy. So I was thinking, could this really be implemented in our project? And the answer is yes and no. You see, yes, because Fibonacci-based spatial sampling indeed does streamline all of the operations, and it does provide you with a better way to analyze. However, what has happened in the last decade completely overshadows it by miles, and the name of it is AI and deep learning. And now what deep learning does is that it takes continuously in new information, and we can even say that it adjusts on the go. So when we feed it with the satellite images, for example, or the data, it continuously adjusts its AI methods, and then it delivers the most accurate output and the highest accuracy. And in no way can a structured mechanism such as the Fibonacci-based spatial sampling compete with a dynamic one like deep learning. And this was once again just a reminder for me that every fixed pattern, system, formula, be it incepted by nature or engineered by human, has its own limitations. And those limitations stem from the fact that, for example, when we talk about Fibonacci sequence, it's been developed by nature, continuously taking in the conditions that are found at a specific point in time. And those conditions, they change as time goes on. So in fact, there is no specific formula or perfect formula. The formula keeps continuously changing, and it is we, humans, who love the narrative of a perfect formula. And in fact, sometimes we're willing to go as far as to state that our DNA helix has Fibonacci sequence in it, whereas in fact, it's just an approximation. These are the correct numbers. It's not the Fibonacci sequence. We want to see more than there actually is. Now, not to undermine the Fibonacci sequence, it does legitimately serve its purpose in nature. For example, sunflower very well utilizes it. It uses Fibonacci sequence to better place its seeds without overlaps and gaps. So what it allows to do to the sunflower is that to place as many seeds as possible into as tiny space as possible, and have as much sunlight as possible shining on them, which is crucial for its survival. Now, when it comes later, then how did the sunflower develop this? Is, well, it was taking in all of the information that was surrounding the sunflower, including sunlight, competition, available space, and based on this, it has figured out that just Fibonacci sequence happened to be the most perfect one that suited it. And this is exactly what we as human beings oftentimes miss. We tend to obsess ourselves with the final result, the final output, meaning the formula itself, and we tend not to look at the method that was used to develop the formula in the first place, whereas here it is of crucial importance, and especially the fact of the nature's adaptability. So, where does it leave it? It leaves us with the fact that our cities have now implemented all of those fixed and rigid structures, and they are inadaptable. And how do we solve them? Well, we can turn back to our sunflower, and we can use the same way as sunflower has developed the idea why it has to use Fibonacci sequence. We take in the information that is surrounding our cities, and luckily we have pretty much all of the infrastructure we need that is constantly providing data that we can now also analyze with the AI capabilities that we have. In no way has it been possible before to analyze as many chunks of data in pretty much real time for any human being or team of human beings, which is now possible with the increasing AI accessibility. And that's crucial, because without it, we cannot change our cities. And this is what, when we come to the waste management example, for example, we can leverage satellites, which is already an existing part of the infrastructure. We can detect not only legal waste dump sites, but we can analyze the landfills, their waste composition, waste amounts, and also the greenhouse gas generation. So this gives us an overview on the high level. Then we move to the field, actually, and start leveraging the existing sensors on the cities. And we can deploy also additional sensors, for example, with object recognition, which help us to understand what type of waste in which quantities has been generated at which specific point in time, either on a waste container or on a waste truck level. And those types of sensors have already proven, for example, that they increase the efficiency and the material quality by 60 to 80%, which is a drastic increase. Now, of course, those type of changes have come with a lot of embedded risks. One of my favorite being the return on invested capital. However, those can be mitigated, and the reason why I'm stating this is because I am myself personally involved in multiple of those projects that leverage all of those examples that I brought out here. From Northern Europe to Saudi Arabia, we're implementing those same methods for cities and making them truly adaptable so that they continuously adjust based on the incoming information. And now this is what I call the Fibonacci, or the golden ratio in action. It's not just a fixed formula or pattern, it's an adjustable one. It continuously keeps adjusting based on the incoming data that it receives. And the good aspect here is that it doesn't go obsolete, because as time changes, so does the output change. And in fact, we're not speaking anymore about waste management in our cities, we're more speaking about urban mining in our cities, which is basically a concept where we treat our cities as material banks. And for example, if we have paper, plastics, and so forth, as waste, we can generate new materials from this information. And where do I want to leave you today is with the following understanding, that we have pretty much all of the necessary power and infrastructure to make the change. We have the nature's blueprint, and we have proven the viability. So the question isn't anymore, will we? It is more about what are we waiting for? Because change should have started already. Thank you.